This is what we need to do. البنك الدولي صنف لبنان one of the worst 3 crises in the last 150 years globally. Any developing country like ours in the world requires 25 to 30% equivalent of GDP to be available in credit. We're less than 3%.
What was broken in the system?
The problem was with complacency. You know, everybody was complacent. It was not a sustainable model. We'd broken conventional rules. We really need the banking sector back. We wonder what would have happened to the private sector had the crisis not have come. Because a lot of people were over-indebted.
Wow.
Because the banks were lending so much, the population became too dependent on the government. We're here to create a new finance model that can serve Lebanon and beyond. So مولنا عمليات ب $640 million without any credit losses in this environment, without a banking sector and without banking sector reform. So the model works. When you can do things like this, you do 2, 3, 4, 5 examples, but you can't do it without legislation.
One advice to young entrepreneurs.
Focus on AI, understand how it's evolving, generally how it impacts society, how it impacts the world. And I think focus on reading about geography, people, history, demographics. No matter how qualified you are, you will find that this kind of general knowledge can help you carry conversation in places that can open doors for you. Sometimes the qualification can't.
Everyone talks about sustainability, but in a country like Lebanon, the real question is, can businesses even survive long enough to become sustainable? Anthony Jabbour, hi.
Hi.
How are you? Hope all is good.
Thank God.
إذا فيك please تقول لي, who are you beyond the title?
I'm a family man that loves Lebanon for Lebanon.
Yeah.
I came from Australia in 1994. We came as a family. It was a decision we made. We were born and raised in Australia, me and my brothers, and we came here. My parents loved the village, and they love Lebanon. So that transition, when it happened, when we came here, there were a couple of real awakenings for us. And those awakenings were the fact, the balance of the sense of identity, the sense of belonging. And when you go to the village, we realized, as much as I love Australia, and it's a place I cherish, and it brought me a lot of good things, but that balance between the village and the city for my children, for me, for all our family, is sacred. And I think beyond that, what I can say is إذا بدي أحسم فرق أساسي بين لبنان وأستراليا هي استمرارية العائلة هون. برغم كل التصاعد الصعوبات اللي عنا إياها.
Yeah. Very good. If you had to describe your journey in one sentence, what would it be?
Change is ever the constant, that's for sure, in an area, in a region we live in. And I think that you've got to adapt to change. You've got to learn how to pivot when you need to. You can't take anything for granted. You've got to understand the dynamics of this area, of this country, how things work. And make them happen where necessary. I think we've come to learn in the recent past that the geopolitics and the macroeconomics play a key role in society, and you've got to learn how to factor that into almost your daily life and almost everything you do.
What originally pulled you into finance and industry?
Originally, I wanted to do electrical engineering when I came here.
Okay.
But I'd always taken an interest in banking and in finance. And when I asked, تعرفي واحد بيسأل قلت لهم كم مهندس وكم حكيم في بلبنان قالوا لي شي 50,000 قلت لهم well you know
ما بدها
لا رجعت قلت لحالي قلت يا خيي finance is a global language.
It
right?
is.
So if you do finance, you can pretty much work anywhere in the world. And the thing is about finance, coincidentally, more so in the recent past than before, with all the economic and financial problems the world has had, you can have a discussion with anybody, right? But whether, you know, and that's part of the beauty of it, and it sort of opens doors for you.
Exactly.
That kind of platform.
Yeah.
And that's basically it.
Interesting. Yeah. So now if we need to talk a little bit about your career journey, was there a defining moment that shaped your career path?
Yeah, there was. It started out here in corporate banking with, incidentally, it was the 7th biggest bank in Lebanon. Then I went to the 7th biggest bank in the region. And then from there, I went to the 7th biggest bank in the world. So it was 777.
Yeah. Lucky number.
It is, yeah. And incidentally, it was by chance. But I think, look, the thing is, I went to the Gulf, and at the time, it was in 2003. And at the time, the Gulf was really growing. Like, you know, money was being thrown at different sectors. The ecosystem that I had, we'd deal with, for example, companies, family offices, مكاتب العيال, صناديق السيادية, the sovereign wealth funds, banks, they were our clients. And the knack that you gather, the ground game, إذا بدك الecosystem تبعهم هو بتأهلك, the size of the transactions, the people you deal with, the conversations you have, you sense it. It just absorbs you and it just takes you to a different place that you know. And that's the beauty when they tell you, when you go and work with global institutions, you realize the different scale.
Your perspective
it broadens. It broadens. You have a grounded perspective about things. You need to make decisions based on grounded data, dynamics. And وقت رجعت على لبنان, I realized, because most of my clients were in either developing countries or emerging markets, and I realized how I could implement that here. And I came, I think, at the right time, the right age. So because you know at that stage how you can assimilate and how you can sort of really probably give back to the country. But I think, and that's what a lot of people try to do, and which is something that a lot of us should be grateful for those people that do come back. They make that journey back and so on and so forth. But in essence, that was the thing that shaped my journey. I think the move to the GCC because of the landscape, the broader landscape that I was exposed to.
Yeah. So if someone is starting today in Lebanon, what would you tell them to focus on؟ يعني شو في شيء هيك بتقول لهم لا ركزوا على هيدا الشيء إذا هن هلا من اليوم عم يبلشوا من الصفر بلبنان.
The pace of life previously was slower than it is today. Everyday technology is growing at breakneck speed. What we can do today in one day was something that took probably 5 or 10 years to do 30, 40 years ago. And I think because of that, I would say focus on AI, right? Understand how it's evolving, not only in your life, generally, how it impacts society, how it impacts the world. And I think focus on reading, not only reading about AI, reading about geography, reading about people, reading about history, reading about demographics, reading about countries, their finances, stuff like that. Make sure you just read. Spend 30 minutes and you will see, if you ask those questions, if you get to a point, I mean, English is my language.
Yeah.
I was reading articles at a young age, and English is in English, and I had to read the article sometimes because of interest, where it was finance economics. I had to read it 2 or 3 times, and even though it was in English, so I could understand it because it was. But once you get there and you start asking those questions, you broaden your perspective, and the key advantage of that is, no matter how qualified you are, you will find that this kind of general knowledge, right, can help you carry conversation in places that can open doors for you sometimes that your qualification can't.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So I think this is
basically nowadays we can see the younger generation, they are bailing on reading, and just like you just said, it can add value
big time
to your knowledge, to your perspective on how you see things, on how you talk to people, on everything basically.
مش بس هيك، انت البيئة اللي عايشة فيها، الطريقة اللي بتنظري لها.
صح.
Read how other societies evolved, like yours, the ones that face the same challenges. But I just want to say one other thing. Groom your character and your general knowledge, because those two things will attract people to you. They will open doors for you. Probably, it will give you an edge. And you can groom your character. People are born with it. It's innate, but sometimes they fail to groom it.
Exactly.
So, and that's something I would say.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, part 3, which is why Cedar Oxygen exists. Let's go back to the beginning. What problem were you trying to solve when Cedar Oxygen started?
Okay. نحن ابتدينا بال2020.
Okay.
بال2020 there was a banking sector crisis, the Beirut port explosion.
Fuel problems.
The food problem. The government defaulted on its debt, and there was a currency depreciation. Right? There was no banking sector. فجأة, you had a banking sector with $180 billion in deposits. The overnight wasn't there anymore. Right?
Yeah.
This is gone. Now, we, at the time, there were a lot of businesses. They got a get out of jail free card. You know, in Monopoly they say you have get out of jail free.
Yeah.
يعني قدروا يسكروا ديونهم بتراب المصاري.
صح لأنه فرق
$1
exactly.
هلا كيف صارت بالنهاية صارت للكل على الكل مش بس الشركات بس صارت للأشخاص اللي مدين بيت سيارة إلى آخره كمان قدر سكر دينه إذا بدك بمبالغ متدنية نسبيا لقيمة الدين. At the time, when you had all these crises, I'd go and see clients, and they'd say to me, I'd say, how are you coping with the crisis? You know, what are you guys doing? I can see, you know, you're growing and stuff. He said, Anthony, he goes, I'm seeing numbers in Lebanese pounds I've never seen in my life. لأن بده يعدل. قال لي بس على سرعة التدهور. قال لي ما عم بعرف إذا عم بربح ولا أخسر. قال لي بس عم شوف أرقام مليارات. عرفتي كيف؟ فضاع يضيع يعني ما إنه people were lost. They didn't know how to cope with it. They didn't know how to factor it in. But I think if you go back 20, 30 years ago when we had the original currency crisis. And دهورت الليرة بتتذكري 3000 والى آخره ورجعوا ثبتوها على 1005. People went through similar challenges. طبعتي كيف؟ And those challenges were very, very tough. But the people learned on a personal and professional level, on a business level, how to factor that in, even on the government level.
How to cope with it.
How to cope with it. So we came in at the time. So you went basically from a situation where you had these 3 problems or 4 problems. It was like an Armageddon. هول إشياء تصير بسنة ونص. هيدي تتصير أصلاً البنك الدولي صنف لبنان من إذا بدك one of the worst 3 crises in the last 150 years globally.
Wow.
It's a fact. You can read that. You can just Google that and it'll come up. So it's a fact, and it's in one of their reports, right? The World Bank report. Yeah. So we came in because we realized there was a necessity in the absence of the banking sector. Yeah. We said, okay, fine. Now that you had deposits in a banking sector equivalent to 3.5 times the size of our GDP. Our GDP was 55 billion. Deposits were 180 billion. All of a sudden, there's no banking sector.
Yeah, it disappeared, basically.
At the time, the private sector credit was 100% of GDP, right? Yeah. Which was 55 billion. Today, private sector credit, our GDP is 33 billion. The private sector credit doesn't even exceed 800 million. It's not even 3%.
Wow. Okay.
So I just want to say one other thing, and this is where I'll get to the point. Any developing country like ours in the world requires 25 to 30% of equivalent of GDP to be available in credit that they need بالسوق. اليوم it should be 25. We're less than 3%. Okay. So نحن فتنا بس ندعم الصناعيين تنضمن لهم استمراريتهم.
يعني يمكن لا تزيدوا هذا الجاب
100% على القليل. يعني اليوم الصناعه شو بده نحن بلشنا بفيرتيكال واحد، مولنا المواد الاوليه، ما بده مواد اوليه تيصنع وتيبيع، مصرياته قلقاني بالبنوكي ما بيقدر يجيبها، مزبوط ولا لا؟ جينا قلنا خلينا نبلش بهالتمويل. هلا هن اللي ضمن لهم جزء من استمراريتهم اكيد هي قصه كمان الدولار اللي حكينا عنه، قدروا يسكروا بتراب المصاري. يعني مش انه بس انه بمعنى
انه كثير اقل من ما هن موقعين كان.
That was a transfer of wealth.
Exactly.
And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Okay. So ليه لبنان كان بحاجه لهيدا البلاتفورم؟
Look, because of these crises.
Yeah.
You know, the difference is that the banking sector, I suppose you have to talk about it as when you go and lend to a company or a bank, there are benchmarks معايير معينة واحد يعني بيعتمد عليها تيقول إنه خي أنا إذا بتحفظ ضمن هول benchmarks, if I work within them, I should be, that's the guide. Why do you have risk people? Why do you have people in treasury? You have a management, right? You have people that اللي بيديروا الصندوق, people اللي بيديروا البنوك. اليوم توصل لمرحلة في معيار معين بالقطاع المصرفي بيقول لك إنه ما لازم تديني شركة أو مجموعة أكثر من 10% من قيمة رأس مالك.
اوكي
هيدا معيار اجمالا معروف اجمالا بكل العالم.
globally.
كان whether it's a developing country or a developed country. اجمالا. We got to a stage where one borrower had exceeded 500%, not 10%, 500% of the capital of banks for the whole banking sector, right? And this was the case. It was a convenience for everybody, right? So it was a convenience because people thought it was going to last forever.
They were making money while sleeping, basically.
People لدرجة إنه الشركات اللي كانت أصلاً صناعيين وغيرها قال لك يا خيي أوكي أنا عم بعمل مصاري بس أنا اليوم الفايدة على الدولار أكثر من ربحي خليني أنا كمان حط جزء
بالبنك
يطمع. But I think the bigger part of the story is that everybody thought that this was going to last forever. العالم كانت تدين مصاري فكروا ال 1500 حتبقى على 1500 وفين يدينوا for anything they want because the banking sector had excess liquidity. Matilda today, in anywhere you go in the world, it's very rare to find, a deposit to GDP ratio of above, let's say, 150%. Banking sector deposit ratio. We had 350%. So you had a lot of excess liquidity chasing limited opportunities in Lebanon.
And basically, we're a small country with no...
and that's why I think the money was rerouted towards, the borrower being the government. But I mean, some of them chose to go abroad as banks, and like Audi and stuff. And I think they probably reaped the benefit of that when they sold the Egyptian operation. So I think, but that said, to sum this up, I think, like I said, I think the problem was with complacency. Everybody was complacent. They took for granted that this was going to,
last I think forever.
The banks lent on the fact that we have forex reserves and so on and so forth. So, but anyway, it all, the reality is it all bellied up in the end. Everything, the entire public and private sector was dependent on the banking sector. And when the banking sector went under, everything
it was a total collapse. Right?
Everything went with it because everything was dependent on it.
Exactly. Right? I know even people from outside of Lebanon, they used to work and put some of their money into the banking sector here to have like easy money.
لأنه اعتمدوا على فكرة إنه التاريخ. We were so good for so long. It became in conclusion on this point, there was a stage, I think even prior to the crisis, close leading up 2016, 2017. Every 3 months we'd get maybe $2 billion coming into the country, to the banking sector, right? But today, the last 4 or 5 years in the private sector, I mean, apart from I'm talking of other than remittances, you don't have anywhere near that kind of money coming into the country. So, today it's easier to rebuild from where you are today than from where you were. And even though you're starting from a lower base, everything is clear. Every dollar a person spends, it's not borrowed money.
You're starting from somewhere at least.
ومش بس هيك, it's not borrowed money. It's money, it's real money.
Exactly.
It's real economy.
It's real economy. So, in your opinion, what was broken in the system?
That was it. It was the problem. It was the complacency, and it was the fact that we did something that was excessive for too long. It was not a sustainable model. We'd broken conventional rules. مش إنه بس انتبهي تقول لك شغلة. It's not as if it's not as if one sector did it. All of us, as Lebanese, we took, like I said, we took it for granted, and it was this fundamental problem. Because I said to you, when the banking sector went under, everything went with it.
We were all dependent on that one sector, basically.
And no, but you know what? We need them back. It's as much as people don't, probably don't want. We really need the banking sector back because when you look at what we're doing, right, and how we're contributing to the real economy, you can see the impact it has on the ground and how it impacts how businesses grow, how people get employed, and how we start to export more. And we'll get into the details of those as well. So, I think that was the real part that was broken.
We won't be able to basically continue in a country with no banking system.
No, we need finance. And I think given that people got used to banks for so long, you need banks because there are things, I mean, we're a company, we're a fund, right? we can't do everything, right? I mean, we do something, but we can't do everything for everybody.
Yeah.
We do something for somebody. We are developing, we're going to different verticals, we're setting up different funds, but at the same time,
you cannot replace.
لا, we're not here to replace banks, I think, and that was never the intention from the outset. We're here to create a new finance model for us that can serve Lebanon and beyond.
Yeah. Why do you think that nobody did the initiative and solved this problem before?
Because the problem was too big and people were scared. All people had doubts. And I'll tell you in one sentence, because people got used to a mindset and they, like I said, they took for granted the fact that the banks, that mindset, developed a certain mindset for you. When we started out, we had a lot of doubters, a lot. They said, you're going to lose your money. People are losing money. And when you go into a system like ours, it's true, we had the problems.
Yeah.
بس you had عالم يشوفي إنه مثلا رأس المال قبل الأزمة يشكل 15% من ميزانية الشركة، اليوم عم بيشكل 70 و80 لأن سكروا ديونهم.
واو.
انتبهتي كيف؟
Yes.
هيدي لحالها تفتح لك ابواب وافق كثيره. انتبهتي كيف؟
يعني one good example حيشد الاكزامبل اللي بعده واللي بعده.
مش بس example, it happened to everyone. People were deleveraged and people at that time after the crisis, Matilda, I guarantee you, a lot of the clients tell me, they said to me, Anthony, if it wasn't, they look at the ecosystem, they go, we wonder what would have happened to the private sector had the crisis not have come. Because a lot of people were over-indebted.
Wow.
Because the banks were lending so much.
Yes.
And they were over-lending, but that was the reality. Look, and again, this was a fact. And the thing is I think everybody has learned from it. I think the banks, the finance system has learned from it. Private sector has learned from it. And I think the future is going to be much brighter. Better? And I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'll tell you why later.
Okay. Good news. Okay, now we're going to talk on what you actually do. Mm-hmm. Okay? So if I'm a business owner listening right now, why should I care about Cedar Oxygen?
Okay. To tell you, look, we lend to industrialists and solely industrialists.
Okay.
Okay. I have to give you a bit of background. We're a $100 million fund. The industrialist sector, what people don't know about, and I'm going to address this later, is that they manufacture the equivalent of $14 billion in goods per year. 10 billion of which are consumed in Lebanon, and 4 billion are exported, right? And now that's a deleveraged sector. It's deleveraged. Yeah. That's one. Number two, our economy today is $33 billion. So the industrialist sector alone before it comprised a lot less because the size of the economy is much bigger. Yeah. And they were manufacturing 14 billion. Okay. But so that's true, that 14 billion has remained. So it was authentic and real. لأنه الفرق بين قد كانت حجم الاقتصاد قبل إنتاج الإجمالي وهلا هو كان الفرق بتمويل الموازنة تبع الدولة.
Okay.
تبعتي كيف؟ So الفرق هلا إنه تحجم. So you're at where you're at. The industrialist sector, what it does in terms for the Lebanese economy is immense, and it's something that's overseen by many. اليوم بتشكل أكثر من 30% of your GDP in the country. Okay. Right? That's industry as industry. هن بيصنعوا قيمة بضاعة بقيمة إذا بدك 14 مليار، مع أنت اقتصادك 33 مليار.
مظبوط.
يعني هن هال 10 مليار ما هو الاقتصاد هو GDP is a function of consumption.
Yes.
Government expenditure, investments, and net exports. They contribute to two major parts of those. Right? Okay. So we came in, we decided to finance 3 verticals: raw materials, مواد الأولية, مكانات للتصنيع, renewable energy efficiency. And we did that. And the reason why people came to us is because they realized the impact of every dollar that was going to be invested when they had deleveraged balance sheets, right? Exactly. And they knew the opportunities. They said, okay, wait, hang on. We were putting off automation. Automation became a big thing.
Exactly. The MS systems.
Subsidies were lifted. Renewable energy became a big thing. Cash conversion cycles, الدورة المالية تبع الشركات كمان, people wanted to streamline that cost. They knew that they could grow now because they had more space يتصرفوا فيها. they weren't يعني اليوم إذا بتشوفي الموازنة تبع الشركة وبتشوفي أرباح الخسائر تبعها، ما بقى عندهم دين على الميزانية، يعني ما بقى عم بيدفعوا فوائد، ما بقى عم هيدي راحت. So they have more room to breathe.
grow.
Correct.
And to grow actually.
So they freed up some of their capital for investments, infrastructure. We came in and we did the working capital part.
Okay.
So that made a lot of sense to them. And that's where we came in. And with CAPEX and the automation, and we'll get to it, energy efficiency, import substitution, streamlining of costs, كلهم هم مع بعض, they make a real impact.
Big difference.
If you run a business, if an industrialist listen to me now, and a lot of them know this resonates so much with them, especially in an environment like ours. واليوم Matilda, access to credit is very rare, right? يعني اليوم اللي بياخد دولار بيعمل 100 حساب أو 1000 حساب قبل ما ياخدها، وبيعرف وين بده يحطها
وبيعرف كيف يصرفها، يعني
كيف بده يردها. لأنه access to credit مقدس، لأنه عائلته.
مزبوط، لأنه ما بقى عندنا access أصلاً من الأصل على الكريدت. فإذا بدنا نحكي كمان شوي هلأ إنه مزبوط، يعني إذا في حدا عم بيسمعنا هلأ، شو Cedar Oxygen, شو اللي أنتوا عم تعطوه, what do you offer that traditional banks or financing don't?
Like we do what other banks do. Banks can do more than us, and they will continue, and they will do more than us. And this is the reality. But what we do is we basically fill a gap, and that gap is lending to industrialists. We lend amounts from $200,000 to $10 million per obligor. We can lend for raw materials anywhere from up to 180 days, يعني 6 شهور بناء على الكاش conversion cycle الدورة المالية تبعه. وعندنا كمان up to 3 years with a grace period for renewable energy and capex. And we make sure that they're aligned with the impact. So for example, if somebody comes and takes a renewable energy facility, we make sure if the savings, the annual savings, we make sure the repayments are less than the annual savings. So we make sure it's repaid from the savings.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that provides some comfort in that sense.
Yeah.
And هدفنا كان من الأساس that we wanted to build a model that we can scale, and we're there now. So because we've deployed most of the money, and in terms of the numbers, I think we're going to get to that. We've deployed لأنه 80% من تسهيلاتنا هي للمواد الأولية. يعني واحد نعطيه سقف بيسحب بيسكر وبيرجع يسحب.
اوكي.
كيف؟ So مولنا عمليات $640 million without any credit losses in this environment, without a banking sector and without banking sector reform. So the model works.
The model works.
And that's what I think, this is the key takeaway from this.
Okay, so businesses were not businesses. I'm gonna put a spotlight على industries. Industries were struggling to stay alive.
Correct.
In 2019 لليوم. So since 2019, over 50% of SMEs, they are shut down now or scaled down operations. Okay, can you give us a simple real life example from an industry that you helped? هيك انه example يقدروا العالم يشوفوا شو الامباكت.
انه ناخذ example على شركه واحده. Yeah, sure. There's one thing I wanted to say before I get into that. Look, نحن the way we work is وقت مندين شخص او شركه وقت مندين شركه بالاحرى. كل شيء بنمضيه تحت القانون الانجليزي، والفند is a European fund based in Luxembourg، وحساباتنا برا. ليه عملنا هالشيء؟ بيجي زبون بيقدم فاتوره، نحن بنعمل انفويس فاينانسينج، بنقول له يا خيي انت بتمول 15% ونحن بنمول 85%، ما بنعطي المصاري، بندفع المصاري للفورنيسور للسبلاير. اوكي. وبالاستحقاق بيحولنا المصاري لوين؟ لبرا. ما بنعتبر الدين تسكر لبال ما المصاري تفوت على حسابنا برا. اوكي. الاطار القانوني تحت القانون الانجليزي. فانتبهتي كيف؟ وهيدي نوعا ما we did it intentionally this way. So we're not in a way we decoupled from part of the operational legal risk that's associated because of not because of the lack of it, but simply I think there were places where there was ambiguity. Okay, and that's what we wanted to sort of siphon out completely. Okay, this was one. هلا من ناحية examples, there's one company. I mean, there are many companies. We've lent to more than 100 companies. One company, I can tell you, we did a blended finance structure, meaning that we did a combination of debt
Okay.
We brought in the UNDP
Okay.
for technical assistance and grants, هبة يعني.
Okay.
And it was renewable energy, right? That's where it started. So we did a renewable energy facility for 1.2 megawatts. The reason why I chose this example specifically is when they did this, it reduced their energy cost by 30%, right?
Which is massive.
Correct. It is huge. I'll tell you, for when you're talking about 1.2 megawatts.
Exactly. It's like huge.
Correct. And it did. And the beauty of it is that it enabled them to export for the first time because of that reduction in cost, right? But beyond this, at the time we had COVID and the implications of COVID, and COVID lasted for 1 or 2 years. So they requested a facility on the back of that for trade.
Okay.
بيجي بيقول لي ليك قلت له شو؟ قال لي أنا اليوم إذا أنا if I stock up on raw material
Okay.
يعني المواد الأولية
Yes.
في زبوناتي هون بلبنان أنا عم بيعهم كميات كبيرة بس ممكن يستوردوا من برا. قلت له قال لي بس the shipping bottlenecks at the time بتعرفي الباخة تحطوا بالcontainers وهيك it took long. قال لي if I have a lot of stock here I can manufacture quickly and deliver to my off-takers even if I was to sell at a slightly higher price.
They will take it.
They will take it because of my ability to deliver.
Yeah.
So that's another way we facilitated during the COVID crisis. And
Okay.
This is another thing we did not only for him, but for many other clients. So that's one example we did. And we're working with other DFIs right now for scaling the fund. Is Allah Rad.
Okay. Part 5, which is the growth and evolution. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about statistics. Okay?
Yeah.
So from day one until today, what changed the most?
The impact. The impact, why do I say impact? It's because with 100 million, and we know this probably more than people looking from outside in, right? It's because it's not a matter of comparison, but when you take 100 million, you flip it over with no credit losses and you finance 640 million, you look at what you've done in the working capital space, you look at what you've done in the renewable energy space, in the energy efficiency space, what you've automated, what you've done in terms of import substitution, those kind of things, they resonate. But when I say impact, we've built a model that works in this environment. The model works, it's scalable, it's sustainable, and for such a dynamic geopolitical and macroeconomic dynamic kind of framework, this resonates so well for investors. Investors today need to see something that works. There are a lot of people that want to help Lebanon, but they don't know how. So and we're going to get to renewable energy هلا بنحكي عنها بس إنه when you create a precedent and they can see it, they can understand it, and we've evolved on two other fronts beyond Cedar Oxygen لأن نحن اليوم محصورين بالموندات تبعنا تنمول فقط صناعيين. هلا أسسنا 2 new funds.
Okay.
One is related to the Lebanon Green Investment Facility, it will be under Cedar Oxygen.
Okay.
We will be able to finance everything in the energy efficiency, renewable energy space for the entire private sector, okay, not only industrialists. And the second one is a fund we've created, Kaman. This will enable investors to lend not only for the entire portfolio. اليوم بتجي لعنا إذا تستثمري بالportfolio تبعنا.
Okay.
مزبوط. But the thing is, today what we've done is we've created a fund where if somebody wants to lend to one single obligor, a name that they like, for example in DEFCO, something that's known, and they want to lend that, they can take that risk and we manage it for them. But that's a way. But the thing is, the precedent we've created, they can take single obligor risk, and that helps attract money in an easier way. Something أنا بعرف مثلا يمكن هالشركة, I'm happy to take risk on it if I know I'm supporting the economy. بعرف,
I will put money in
correct.
it.
I will put, they'll lend money. It's basically lending.
Yes.
The equity is something we don't do, at least not now.
Okay. I did a small research. So manufacturers increase production capacity by 30 to 40% just by stabilizing cash flow, not even investing in new machines. يعني بس ليشوفوا العالم قد ايه في impact by just supporting هود industries هن قد ايه قادرين to give back basically to the community. How has Cedar Oxygen evolved?
We started off with what I told you. I think we've touched on this on a number of the points we've just discussed.
Yeah.
We basically started out with raw materials, purely financing raw material. And this was basic, it was basic banking. And then basically the renewable energy in CAPEX came from the demand of the industrialists. And then from then, once we got that model, we scaled. Once we scaled, we built an ecosystem. We brought different stakeholders into it. I go back to this point, we got to the point, and we wanted to get to the point where we can scale it. Right now, we've deployed most of the money, actually all of the money, we just keep a bit of liquidity.
Okay.
And the impact we have is brilliant, simply because every day we have transactions that we're financing, every day people are repaying, so it's basically like a bank. But I think the vision is, I don't want to talk it up too much, but I think now that we've got the visibility that we need with the key stakeholders, the traction and discussions we're having are very strategic. And that's what I would say today. Again, we've built, like I said, it's a workable solution. And I think that's the biggest achievement, the fact that we've managed to do this in such a challenging environment.
Yeah, exactly. You've managed to have a working solution in a very challenging environment.
Correct.
Yeah. So what are the key numbers that show your growth?
Some of them I've told you. I think in the renewable energy and CAPEX space, we've lent more than 100 loans, totaling about $50 million. The impact is in tens of thousands of carbon dioxide, if you like, in terms of the tons, the CO2 reductions. And some companies in the pipeline is very healthy, but the pipeline needs more money. Numbers, like I said to you, the 640 million. I know this keeps coming up, but it's a significant number. And the thing is, what I would say here is that, can you imagine we had $180 billion in deposits. If we deployed about 10 billion of that 180, we're 100 million.
Yeah.
100 initiatives, $100 million. We deployed them in this way. It would have provided us with a decent cushion. And I think that's something we should learn from going forward, because the more of these models that you have that can finance different sectors of the economy will give you that private sector cushion that you need to move forward.
To move forward.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In case when you want to grow. And it'll be defined. It'll be easier for investors to invest in it, because it has defined parameters and no moral hazard. بمعنى تعرفي شو عم بتمولي.
ما عم unknown.
حتى الزبون اللي عم بتمولي، رغم انه انت مرتاحه تمولي، بتدرسي ارقام واللي بدك اياه، بالنهايه ما عم تعطيه المصاري تتقولي له انه انت روح صرفها على مثلا OPEX. We don't finance OPEX operation. We say اعطيني الفاتوره تعال ندفع للفورنيسور. You know exactly what you're paying
for.
You know what I mean? And when we finance 30-40% of their total purchases at best.
Okay.
So we keep a cushion.
Exactly.
So over the year. So we keep a cushion. God forbid, should the economy contract or the business contract, we know we have a cushion that they can lean on, that they can adapt to. We do stress tests and so on and so forth. Yeah. And it's worked well. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you most proud of so far?
Something I've said so far, I've already said, and I think that's the fact that we got it to a point. We had a lot of doubters in the beginning, but a lot. And we stuck to our ground game. We had a lot of challenges. We stuck to the fundamentals. Hats off to everybody in the team, everybody.
Yeah.
From all the way the top down. It's definitely worth mentioning, the guys, and it's worth mentioning here Alex and Brahim and all the team that we have. These guys have they went through thick and thin, and hats off to them.
They believed in the idea and they worked for it.
Yeah, we did. We believed in the idea and we believed in each other. I mean, we gave everybody.
Yeah.
We're only 8 people here,
Yeah.
right? And 2 people in Paris. We gave ourselves the space to be able to do the work, you know, and it's
To
all
trust
about,
the process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Right?
something. That's something that's hard in Lebanon, right?
Yeah,
People
it
don't
is hard.
usually, they don't
Yeah.
trust the process, you know,
Exactly.
and it's because we live in a society where, in the developing countries, the individuals are bigger than institutions.
Yeah.
In the West, the institutions are bigger than the
than
individuals.
yeah.
And here it has its pros and its cons, right?
Yeah.
So here, عندك مثلا, you need to make decisions, and that's one of the things. If you can't make decisions, things won't get done.
Yeah,
And
you need
that's a
to
huge
like.
challenge. And sometimes you need a person to make a decision. And in Lebanon, you know,
We fail to have these people.
now in the private sector, you
Yeah.
can make, because you're all working for the same objective,
Yeah,
you make rational decisions and you implement them.
exactly.
In the public sector, even if you have the best idea, you need buy-in. So
Yeah, you
that-
have multiple people
correct.
working
It,
on
it, it, it slows you down.
yeah.
That's
You
it.
don't have the same vision.
Look, that's something else. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not talking, you know, I think even if you have the best idea, irrespective, you just, the fact that you need the buy-in of multiple individuals,
Yeah.
irrespective of what that is,
Yeah.
that's not the point. But I'm talking about the private sector per se. What I've always loved about the private sector is that you can make objective decisions based on data, based on, you know, numbers, common sense. And that's why we have 0 defaults. That's why we've done what we've done.
Yeah.
That's why it's become a scalable model.
Exactly.
Because we've managed to make those decisions.
The right decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So did anything not go as planned?
Yeah, a lot of things. I mean, well, when I say a lot of things, but I mean, they weren't fundamental.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was the vision, and we knew our stuff. We don't take anything for granted. We don't deem that the past, the guaranteed success of the past, the guaranteed success of the future.
Exactly.
But we've learned from the past. We've learned from our challenges, from our mistakes, and I think the future looks. I believe. Look, in the context of things, تقول لك إياها من الآخر. اليوم عندنا نحن 100 مليون، الاقتصاد 33 مليار. We're massively underbanked. يعني فيك تحطي. I'm not saying in the private sector in total. In an economy like ours, you can comfortably put in $2-3 billion, comfortable across the private sector.
Yeah.
Right? People will debate this because we're massively, massively underbanked. And you're starting from a very low base, Matilda.
Exactly.
You know, so that's why the opportunity is there. Great, but that's why the opportunity is there. That's helped us. The 2 biggest factors is the underbanking of the bank sector, and 2, the fact that they're deleveraged. They don't have debt.
Exactly.
It's easy to lend them.
Yeah.
Easier to lend them, not easier.
Let's talk now about the impact, the big picture, and energy. Okay. At the end of the day, what impact are you really creating?
Okay. I've alluded to these. We do 3 things. With raw materials, we impact working capital. We improve the cash conversion cycle of the client, which is fundamental to their everyday activity. هذه شرايين البزنس. Number 2, in CAPEX, we do automation. This and energy. And automation and the acquisition of machinery بيؤدي ل import substitution, energy efficiency, enhanced productivity. يعني الشغل اللي بتصنعيه اليوم if you get a machine and you adopt, if you like, automation, you basically produce that same unit of production with less energy and less time.
And you can get trends from it as well.
Absolutely. And then that becomes part of your strategy to scale. And everything else within the organization, that company works towards this, but you need the fundamentals. And today with technology and the fact, again, I go back to the fact that they're deleveraged and you're able to lend them, they see the opportunities. Lebanese travel, they participate in conferences, they go, they see what's new. They're not afraid because they have the knack. You know, they're not afraid to ask.
They are built with it.
Yeah, they are. It's innate. And not only that, Lebanon is ideally positioned so people travel to Dubai, they go to Europe. It's so close. I mean, in Sydney.
It is.
In Sydney, I need 7.5 hours, right, to cross 50 million people. Here, in 7.5 hours in any direction, I'd probably cross 1 billion.
Exactly.
Right? And that's, you see,
so you're close to everyone here.
And that's a strategic advantage that people tend to overlook, you know?
Yes.
So,
we are in a strategic place.
We are. Look, and for a number of reasons, we'll get to it in the conclusion, but Look, Lebanon, it's, you know, I know the Gulf took a lot of the shine in the last 20, 30 years. But I mean, Lebanon has a lot of the talent, you know, and we're not a big country. We're not like Egypt, 120 million people.
Exactly.
Right? We don't have those complex problems. We're a small country. And it's, like I said, it's easy to rebuild from where we are today. And it's not going to take as much money as many people think. You know, you talk about bailouts for countries of 10, 20, 30 billion dollars. Here you put, I've told you about 100 million.
Yeah.
You put 3 or 4 billion into the country in this way.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what it would do to the country?
Exactly.
Right? And we're going to get to some examples I'll talk about with some people that are really impressive. You have 100 Lebanese like that.
The country will be...
هلا بتشوفي.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What does impact mean for you?
Everything. Every dollar I invest, I want to understand how it's going to impact the business, not only the bottom line, how it's going to really impact the business, impact the environment, how it's going to make a difference. We make sure in our reports, all of us, we have this discussion every single time.
Yeah, it's very interesting to know that behind your choices and behind your decisions, to always look for the impact behind it.
Oh, yeah, we always do. We always do. Like in energy, you know, it's obvious. That's the most obvious today for obvious reasons come in. لأنه today it's a no-brainer. Renewable energy is a no-brainer. And we got it by default. بس إنه we got it by, لأنه رفعوا they lifted subsidies, right?
Yes.
And then it became a household topic.
Exactly.
Right? And when it becomes a household topic by default, everybody talks about it, everybody wants to do it, and they
did it. It's normalized.
Yeah, because it affects everybody's pockets.
صح. إذا أنا Lebanese manufacturer, okay, what percentage of their costs today is energy? إذا عم نحكي أكيد average. أنا قد إيه عم بدفع على الطاقة؟
You know, look, I've heard a lot from different industrialists because we finance many renewable energy projects. Anywhere from probably 20, in some cases I was surprised to hear it was up to 50%. And at a certain stage after lifting of subsidies, it became an existential threat to many small and medium-sized businesses, more than the bigger ones.
SMEs, yeah.
لأنه they were impacted because they took it for granted. Again, it was complacency, right? Not that it was their fault.
Yeah.
But they thought that was also going to last because of the alpha.
It was just available for them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now they had to factor it in, and now you have to make a change.
Yeah.
So anywhere from 20 to 50%, but the smaller and medium size tend to be on the higher side because the bigger companies, even though their bills are bigger, but the size of the business
they can handle
bigger.
it.
Correct. And they can afford with the deleveraging, they can afford from their own money at the time because they borrowed so much to invest and reduce that before we even got to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So energy is one of the biggest cost drivers for businesses.
Correct.
How are you helping Lebanese industries survive or grow? كمان خلينا شوي نركز على الانرجي part يمكن.
Sure. No, absolutely. Look, when you do energy efficiency, it's clear. When I say energy efficiency, it means a reduction in energy costs, right?
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. So no matter how you do it, so you can do it through solar panels, through batteries, through
VFDs on pumps maybe.
Correct. Pumps, heat pumps, and there are a lot of solutions, a lot of savvy solutions that are coming up. And like I said with automation, the bottom line on some, I'll give you an example. There was one company that I didn't end up lending to.
Okay.
اجى قال لي بالبقعه قال لي أنتوني قلت له شباك قال لي بدي 1,200,000 قلت له قلت له he's very bankable by the way.
Okay.
Lovely gentleman.
Yeah.
قال لي قلت له show me the numbers, you know, what's the rationale, what are you doing? قال لي it's the first phase. قلت له what's it going to return, what are the returns? قال لي the ROI is 1 year. It was the first phase of a project.
Okay.
The second phase, we had an ROI of about 2.5 years.
Okay.
The first phase, 1.2 million, he implemented with his own cash.
Yeah.
And the second year, he added net profits to his bottom line of 1.2 million. Simple. لأنه his ROI was 1 year.
Yeah.
So and it was like, that's the kind of impact. I'm giving you as an example, but we did it for a number of clients. The impact wasn't 1 year.
Okay.
Our average ROIs is 2.5 years.
Okay.
It ranges from 1 to 3.5.
Okay.
But the average is about 2.5 years. And usually, even if it's 2.5, we tend to give the loan for about 3.5, inclusive of a grace period.
Okay.
So we allow,
This,
you know, لا سمح الله صار ما صار.
صح، ويكون في مجال.
100% هي أول شغلة، وثاني شغلة ما بنعتمد فقط على مردود الاستثمار، نعتمد على الأرباح كمان، إنه he has a cash flow to repay.
Okay.
So the savings are
ما يكون عم يشيل من حاله يعني.
it's additional cash flow. The savings are a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But it's a positive and additional cash flow for them to repay the financing tools. Yeah.
Okay. So if a company invests in energy efficiency or solar, what kind of savings are we realistically talking about? عم نحكي 20%, 50%, 10%.
قلت لك يعني سنتين ونص يعني 40% is about the average. 35 to 40%, that's what we're seeing. And it depends where you are. So the same business with the same energy infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure, in the Bekaa, because of the topography of the Bekaa, will tend to yield about 30% more than other places in Lebanon.
لأنه سهل كمان.
Correct.
بيستفيدوا من وفوق الشمس أقوى من تحت.
So these are a no-brainer. So that by itself alone, and a lot of people I know, clients of ours, have either set up a parallel operation بالبقاع or they've relocated to the
Wow, ليستفيدوا من الانرجي.
Some of them unfortunately have actually left Lebanon.
Wow.
I know we had a company that closed the debt. They went to St. Petersburg in Russia.
Okay.
Another one is closing and they have intentions of going to Egypt simply because of energy.
Exactly.
Because they're exporters. They rely on the export market.
Yeah.
And they can't compete with the manufacturers that are in Turkey or Egypt.
They have energy.
That are serving, that have cheap energy, access to cheap energy, that are serving other markets. Yeah.
نحن we have a potential here in Lebanon to be شوي عنا يكون عنا decentralized.
We need legislation. We're going to get to that.
Yeah. Do companies actually care about sustainability or only on cost savings? I know that.
لا ليكي تعال لك هون حالك تنحكي بالواقع يعني.
صح.
هلا بوقت اللي رفعوا الدعم كل العالم تأثرت. فجأة أنا كنت اليوم فاتورتي شيء وصارت شيء ثاني. By default, it created an awareness, right? And it impacted. It was a cost yet. بس اليوم بتسألي شو الأسئلة بتسأليها؟ مين بيقدر يعمل لي إياها؟ مين بيوفر لي أكثر؟ هيدي was أحد المصايب اللي صارت لأنه اليوم بالتوفير بتروح على محلات يمكن people not very accredited in this space.
صار كل العالم بقى تركب solar.
Exactly. It was an opportunity and it was opportunistic to use the word opportunity. I think it's more appropriate. And people sort of said, you know, I want to do this, I can do this, and you know, and in remote parts, in rural areas of Lebanon, you know, I think with hospitals, schools, businesses, people tend to go to accredit. They know who the accredited parties are. They're connected on social media and so on and so forth, and they ask those questions. They need to. They can't afford to make that mistake.
Exactly.
Whereas in the rural areas, you tend to have that fallout. So, but on the issue, cost was definitely, that was the trigger.
It was the main trigger for sure.
It was the trigger. And in Lebanon, our total energy need is about 4,500 megawatts. The private sector replaced, through their own money, not through debt, 1,500 megawatts, which is equivalent to anywhere between 1.5 to $2 billion. Now, in terms of the remainder, a part of that remainder is still out there. You know, it's low-hanging fruit, if you like. And the better part of it requires legislation and infrastructure upgrade, the grids, and reasons I will discuss. But I think now that you've triggered that 30%, you've created that impact. People have asked the questions. People know what renewable energy is today with social media and the fact that it's on their roof, it's in their house. Exactly. The fact that you have that is an awareness, and sustainability requires awareness. What's the next phase? I think once you get to things like habits, you know, sorting, stuff like but that becomes a campaign, an awareness campaign. And sustainability, the mere fact that you have this is a sustainability in itself, because the reason why the impact's already been created. Right? And it's going to stay that way. And technology is getting cheaper.
Exactly.
وقت بلشنا نحن تعملي 1 ميجاوات تركبي 1 ميجاوات مع البطاريات right was $2 million. Today it's $900,000.
Yeah, it's insane. هلا كثير.
But yesterday I read an article in one of the in the Financial Times actually. a company called Cattle, CATL, they're Chinese.
Okay.
They're the largest manufacturer of EV batteries so in the world. I don't know if you've heard of them. But they yesterday said that they've created a battery, they've developed a battery that can charge from 5% to 80% in 15 minutes, right?
Wow.
And can run on one charge for 1,500 kilometers. That's an EV battery. Yeah, I mean, you see, that's where we are today. I told you where we were 3 years ago. So where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years is going to be something that's
completely different.
Yeah, because the money, it's easy with technology, with AI. We're just going to, I mean, machines are learning themselves. They're teaching themselves. Okay, so you can...
It's insane.
It is. And I think the companies, you only have to look at this week's Economist. There's a company called Anthropic.
Yeah.
But just read it. It's a very interesting read. Yeah. And it's because of AI and where AI is taking us that, 5 men are probably going to dictate where a large part of where the future is going to take us in terms of AI and so on and so forth. So, it's a very interesting dynamic that's happening globally. And, let's wait and see how that pans out.
Yes, for example, بالAI, we used to, for energy auditing, I used to go and have, let's say, 100 pages, documents, PDFs, whatever. Now you can put them all into AI.
That's right.
بيعطيك إياهم on one page with summary.
The other day, I was somebody wanted a presentation from me, so I can't remember what it was. Yeah. And I jotted down the ideas, right? I put them together. Matilda, in 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah, again,
somebody
I know.
told me about it. I couldn't believe it. I said, if I wanted to do this, I just sort of said, at my pace and, with what you know and what you don't know and so on. So, it would take you days to do something like that. Yeah, but I mean, that's the beauty of it. That's the idea. That's what I was saying earlier, why people have to understand by doing work.
And know how to use it.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just sort of... it's not a matter of just chat GPT and Gemini.
And just chat with it.
Not only chat with it. Chat GPT can do a lot for you.
Yeah.
But it's what the other platforms in AI can do for you. Specific platforms for specific tasks.
Exactly.
And I think that's something we're going to have to, people have to groom themselves on.
Yeah, and to embrace.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we need to talk now about the renewable energy sector in Lebanon.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a small example. 1 over 3 households in Lebanon, they have a PV system now. But the big problem in Lebanon, ما حأحكي عن زحلة لأنه عنا net metering. حأحكي عن بيروت ما عنا net metering لأنه net metering للي ما بيعرف هو أنه لازم تكون أدقال موجودة لأقدر أنا رد على أدقال من الطاقة الشمسية طبعا. Everyone is talking about solar in Lebanon, but what's the reality behind it?
Look, like I said, it was a knee-jerk reaction, and it was immediate. It was something people
fast.
Didn't expect. Yeah, it was fast. So people reacted, whoever could. I'm going to get to the crux of the thing. There are 2 things. Legislation will help you address this properly. I will tell you what I mean. I'm going to give you an example. طريقة ضياع. نحن انت عم قولي الثلث ضياع. اعتبري عندك 300 بيت بضياع. 100 بيت. These people can afford because they paid. They didn't borrow money.
Exactly.
They paid. But the people that can't afford it, they can't pay for it, right? So if they're going to have to pay for it, they either have to get the cash from somewhere or they have to borrow it, right? If you have the legislation that allows for microgrids and solar farms, right? Decentralization, right? هلا we're on that path. هلا مع الهيئة النظم ورسيم التطبيق إذا الله وحتى الإيرا you have an ecosystem that's evolving. We're getting there. There are you got to give credit where credit's due. We're getting there. But let me tell you this. Today the average person, your average rural بالضيعة أشخاص قاعدين بالضيعة, they probably can't afford $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000, right? You bring an investor. Right? And you pass this law, you bring an investor in. He sets up, let's say on average you have 1,400 villages in Lebanon. Let's say each one needs 0.5 megawatt. So that's about 700 megawatts, okay? Let's say for a village you bring in and you set up 1 megawatt. And that's their need.
Yeah.
Once you do that, first of all, the houses, not everybody will have to put. Nobody's restricted by the amount of area they have or land they have.
على الروف طبعا.
Whether it's roof or next to them, right? They can take as much energy as they want. That's
exactly.
One. Number 2, is that these people, the only impact that they will feel is on their pockets, which is a positive impact. They never had to borrow, right? They never had to, when I say borrow from banks or from somebody, they don't have to spend from their savings, right? And they become on an equal footing. So everybody in that chain or in that ecosystem is better off. And
it's a win-win.
بتعرفي ليه؟ الانفستر منه جاي عم ياخذ one risk. بيقول لك أنا ضيع عندي 100 واحد. قد ايه من هال 100 واحد ما هيدفع؟ بتسكري له إياه. اليوم التكنولوجي, it's smart technology, right? So, you know, I'm talking practically, you know, and this is what you need to address. And the thing is, when you can do things like this, you do 2, 3, 4, 5 examples, but you can't do it without legislation, right?
Yeah.
People are trying, the problem is here, is that it's been done.
You cannot move forward.
Like, it's been done. Some people have done it without legislation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, you need to do it
with
the legislation because that's how you bring private investment in to alleviate the problems of the people that are on the ground.
Yeah.
The people, the vulnerable, the people that need it most, the people where in the village your access to income is much thinner and
than
the opportunities here. And these kind of initiatives help keep people in the village. We need to help people stay in the villages. We need to be, for example, this is one initiative. Another one, we'll get to it, but I think another one is, for example, placing people in jobs abroad. If today somebody earns 2,000, اللي بيبقى بضيعته مرتبط بأرضه أكثر بيفكر بأرضه بيفكر 100 مرة قبل ما يفل أكثر من اللي قاعد بالمدينة. طبعتي كيف؟
أكيد.
It's just the mindset, you know. لأنه بيعيش مع أرضه.
يعني بيكون عنده هيدا اللويالتي كمان إنه
مش بس هيك كونه قاعد هونيك إذا هو ما بيحكي بالأرض اللي حواليه عم بيحكوا بالأرض. طبعتي كيف؟ And this is something.
It's in the system.
Correct. And that's what helped build this country years ago. And that's what helped keep those people tied to this country years ago.
Yeah.
And we're living off that blessing. And that's something we shouldn't take for granted.
Is this a real transition or just a temporary solution?
Look, Matilda, already 30% of conventional energy has been replaced by renewable energy. So you have to call it a transition,
exactly.
Right? And we're talking about solutions we're already adopting. There are so many stakeholders, whether it's the government, whether it's the private sector, whether it's us, so many different, you're talking about it, but not only talking about, people are doing things. Yeah. So the fact that they're doing this stuff is that this trend, we're laying a path, we're creating an ecosystem where this transition can continue.
And it actually works.
Of course, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I think per capita, we were one of the quickest to transition.
Wow, to renewable
in the world. Yeah, we were one of the quickest as a country in the world, given per capita, and given the size and the need. 15%, 30% is a lot. 1,500 out of that's a lot. Yeah, in the period of time that we did it, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that people know about it, there's an awareness, and we have to continue that awareness. But I think practically, I know we talk about awareness, but practically, we have to solve the problem. We have to get the legislation.
In order for us to move forward.
And we bring the investors, خلاص, you know. And when I say we bring, I mean, I'm not saying it's a piece of cake, right? But we've got to do our part. Yeah. And everybody has to do their part. Like I said, we can't do everything for everybody.
يعني إذا كمان نحن حلينا قصة الرورال areas و decentralized systems ساعتها كمان ما هي إذا عم نرد نحن على أداء كمان عم تستفيد الدولة منا يعني كل السيكتور تبع الانرجي تبعنا عم بيكون عم بيستفيد من هذا الموضوع.
Lately, the government is overwhelmed. I think it's been the case for the last 20, 30 years, you know, because, I mean, I think the population became too dependent on the government.
Too dependent on everything.
No. Too dependent on the government. They thought, you know, the government they
handle everything.
Yeah, and you know, they were overwhelmed. You know, that was the expectation, right? There's a private sector that needs to play its role in this government, but we have to do our part. That's the bottom line. But we have to work together. We have to just, you know, and that's the whole idea. I mean, the private sector has to work with the public sector. There's no doubt. Exactly. And legislation is absolutely key. It's mandatory. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You want private people will not take, especially in a country like Lebanon, unless they know it's legal. Foreign investors, unless they know it's legal, they won't do it. Simple.
Exactly. كمان بدي أقول إنه في opportunity إنه معقول الشركات كمان يقدروا يفتحوا بالrural areas لأنه يمكن يحسوا الكهرباء متوفرة بطريقة أضبط يمكن rural areas ساعتها يصير فيها فرص عمل.
I was going to get to a point هلا. There's one of the examples have you heard of multi-lane Fadi Dole? You've heard of
Fadi Dole,
Fadi.
yes.
He came to Lebanon and AI. He works in AI, so he basically built the hardware that goes into data centers, and his clients are the likes of NVIDIA, Oracle, Cisco, Meta, Facebook, and Amazon. Those. Yeah. So Fadi has grown quickly in a short period of time, and now he's expanding his manufacturing. He's already acquired the land in the north and the south, and he's going to employ people, right? And his business is scaling exponentially. That's the beauty of AI, because the amount of money, if you can plug yourself into that supply chain that is abroad, the added value you have to your business and by and large your economy, especially in a country like Lebanon, it's very palpable and visible, right? Yeah. So the scalability of that is brilliant. Can you imagine we have 100 Lebanese, we have the know-how, we have the money, we have the intelligence, right, abroad. If 100 like him came and did what he did in the country, you know, and you just employed the people in the peripheries here in town, and you can employ the people.
Will change people's lives, basically.
You will change the landscape of the country.
Yeah, even, yeah.
And the dependency, you will alleviate the burden on the government. You will help the government by not being so dependent on it. So the private sector will shift. People will be encouraged when they see these things. Why do we go to America? Why do we go to France and the UK and Australia?
To seek opportunities.
Yeah, with who? With companies like this. Exactly. When they come, when we do things, when we create initiatives like that here,
people will not leave.
Correct. And people go over there to do that. But we're already tied to our land. You don't have to convince us to be tied to our land.
Who is doing it right and who isn't?
In short, we've already addressed this, I think. The businesses are doing it right, the hospitals. Anybody who gets an accredited service provider, somebody that's known, somebody that has a decent track record to install and manage this would most likely be doing it right. As we said, touched on earlier, the opportunistic aspect of people, a lot of people getting into the business, and people set up shop left, right, and center, solar panels when they came in on the cheap.
Yeah.
And that obviously resonates with the households in rural areas, a lot of the places. And this is where people aren't doing it right, and eventually it's gonna backfire. But I know
for sure.
Yeah, but I think if we do the holistic solutions with legislation, and that will address a lot of that part. Because I can understand people trying to do something ad hoc. They just want to do it because it saves their pockets. They want to. It's a mindset. It
is a mindset.
And I but again, I don't think people really understood the implications of this. And that's where the awareness part comes in.
إذا بدنا نحكي شوي بطريقة هلا هيك fast, the way forward, are you optimistic about Lebanon's future in energy?
Yes, I am. I am because a lot of the hard work has already been done. People know what it is. People will always. It's already become a household topic.
Exactly.
People often talk about it. I mean, we're talking about it here by intent, but a lot of people talk about it, over coffee, over dinner, because it affects our lives.
Exactly.
Right? And I think the challenges we had with electricity and energy in the past has made this a household topic. And I think people, now that they're aware, and when funding comes back, when banks come back, you'll see there will be a lot of money that's channeled into this sector.
Energy sector.
Yeah, big time. And especially with legislation. Wow. If you have those two, you're in a good place. Yeah, you're a very good place. Yeah. That's what I think. I think if we do those two things, I think we'll be able to scale this quickly. Yeah,
because now we can see the challenge as well from the war. بس سكروا مضيق هرمز كيف طلعوا البرايسز تبع الانرجي. بحس كل هلا الكونتريز they're planning for the future, right?
We get 300 days of sun on average per year.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't we do it? It's low hanging fruit.
Exactly.
It's not. But we need the see this. هيدي بتخفف عبء على البرايفت سيكتور وعلى
الجفرمنت. أكيد.
That's why I'm saying it. But we have to understand how to address it. We need to sit down on the table and get this across the line as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Look, they're going in the right direction. هيئة الناظمة تعيين هيئة الناظمة وهلا بيعملوا مراسيم والى اخره وكل الايكو سيستم تبع stakeholders. This is really gonna benefit this sector in ways that will surprise you. These people know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. But I mean, when I say they know what, it's not rocket science. right? But
yeah,
it is. I mean, but there are laws. When I say people, there are people in the ecosystem. Whether it's the service providers, people, they know the nuts and bolts of this business.
Yeah.
And they know how to create that impact.
Yeah.
But they're doing what they can do within existing legislation.
Yeah, because we need new legislations, updated ones.
We need two things. We need new legislation. We need to upgrade the grids.
Exactly.
Because today one of the biggest problems is that وقت اللي بتنجي الكهرباء اوكي اوقات بتخسري قبل ما توصل
اكيد لان احنا
35% بسبب الديلابيتيشن of the grid.
أكيد the cables والtransformers everything.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't get there in the efficiency that it should.
Yeah. Quick fire round. Lebanon in one word.
بالعربي بيصلي أوقات إنه لبنان بيعني قلب الله يعني قلب الله. And I think hope is something that always sticks in my mind. I'll tell you why if I can give you a bit of background. When I was growing up, I used to like listening to Michael Jackson and the Beatles more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And when I learned Arabic properly, and my parents in Australia would always turn on Fairuz, Kulthum, Wadia, Sabah, these things. You would listen to the songs. And then once I developed a liking and I understood the lyrics more of Fairuz and, Batar Rahbani, I would listen to the Beatles. I loved Paul McCartney, and I still do. And I would sort of notice the difference. I would say to myself, when you listen to Michael Jackson and the Beatles, it's about an emotion, a feeling, a relationship. Without fail, in the case of Fairuz, almost 80-90% of the time, it makes you think about Lebanon. It's instilled Lebanon in the hearts of millions of Lebanese abroad, right?
It is true.
That in and of itself creates a sense of hope. But beyond this, when you say the word Lebanon and you're abroad, not in Lebanon, you're abroad, قبل ما تحكي باللبنانيين اللي ساكنين هون. شو بيفكروا؟ بيفكروا it's energetic. شو بيفكروا بدي اروح بالصيفية. I don't care. حتى اقول لك شو قصدي فيها هيدي. مش انه بس تروحي مشوار. بيفكروا بضياطهم، بيفكروا بالبحر، بيفكروا بالجبل. بعائلتهم، بيفكروا بربهم، بيفكروا بأرضهم، بيفكروا كل هالقصص. It's an alchemy of sorts, right?
Yeah.
It all stems from emotion. It triggers something in you, right? Just when you say the food, if you go to Lebanese, you just look at Lebanese food. What do you think of? That association creates an affinity.
That link.
Yeah, that link. And because the history of the country, the fact that prophets came here, Christ came here, exactly. It just resonates so well. I mean, the three major religions, the Abrahamic faiths, they're all from here,
exactly.
Right? And it ties us even more
to this land.
And I was telling you at the beginning of the discussion about, the family, استمرارية العائلة. If you look at this combination of feelings, it just arouses something in you that other places in the world don't.
You wouldn't start a family.
And correct, and that's why I call it hope. We always talk about Lebanon. You go to an outing in Australia or in America, in Europe. People are talking about Lebanon. Oh, this should happen and that should happen. These people should do this. We should do this for our village. We're going next.
There's always plans.
There's always plans. And that's you don't find that in many societies around the world. Not with that kind of passion. And you don't find many societies where you have people abroad speaking the language as well.
Exactly.
Right? And mind you, Fairuz and a lot of other things have a lot to do with that. And that's why when you think about that, you're always hopeful that, Lebanon, you'll have a better Lebanon tomorrow.
That's your life.
Always, no matter what you live with that idea all your life.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I
say. You are born with this hope.
Correct. You live it, from the cradle to the grave.
Yeah.
It's like whether you're in Lebanon or outside Lebanon, you can always have a discussion about Lebanon, for this very reason. It triggers that hope in you. And it's something that, you cherish, but you don't want to, you want to stay focused. You want to be able to really help the country. Exactly. And that's what, that's one of the things we're doing. And
to create hope.
Like, it's not only about, what we do financially, it's about what we do, on a human level.
Mentally.
I encourage people, just no preconceived notions. in the West, you grow up, we have, in Australia, you have more than 150 nationalities, you get to know them, different cultures.
Yeah.
It breaks barriers. You don't have preconceived notions about people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, I think we should, sort of filter that out here. Sit down with people, look at each other, be with each other.
Yeah, on a deeper level.
A much deeper level from our youth. We should create spaces for all of Lebanese society to mingle at a very young age.
Yeah. Sustainability, a trend or a necessity?
I think, and I alluded to this earlier, it was a necessity. It still is a necessity for many, especially people who don't have money, and I think finance will resolve that. With awareness, it will become sustainable. I will tell you why. People are seeing the results, and I think with technology, the way it's evolving, it's going to be palpable.
One advice to young entrepreneurs.
If you don't build the Lebanon that you want, you'll have to live with the fallout. Get together, build the Lebanon you want, as Lebanese, for Lebanon, for you.
Yeah.
All of you. That's when I say I'm talking through business.
Exactly.
Learn what you learn, work together. You guys have a knack. You come together, you have a knack to communicate with people here and abroad. That's amazing. Socialize, integrate, learn. Don't be afraid. If you can make it happen in Lebanon, you've done a lot. And I'm quoting, not politically, but I remember somebody I know. It's not somebody I know. Somebody I've come to learn of, Charlie Cook. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know before he died.
Charlie. Yeah.
I didn't actually know who he was when he died. Right?
Really? Yeah.
I didn't know who he was. I mean, people around me did, but I didn't. I read.
Trump's team.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely. So one thing I have to say is what I really admire about one thing, because I don't know everything to be fair, is that he said the biggest achievement you can make is to raise a family, more than your education. And I think we know this innately, and we shouldn't forget that. Don't forget that, right?
Yeah.
Because our families are sacred.
It
right?
is.
Our faith is sacred, all of us.
Yeah.
Our faith is something sacred. That's what helps us stay grounded,
together.
Right? And exactly.
Stick together.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was something he did that was just absolutely, I think hats off on that level.
Yeah.
I don't know everything because I've just come to recently know about him. So, but that's why I intentionally quoted that. And I think, remember your family and remember Lebanon, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Final question. If the world listened to you for 1 minute, what should we start doing differently tomorrow?
Okay. Look, in simple terms, Lebanon can't wait.
Yeah.
Lebanon can't wait. We have the challenges today. We're in a position to help Lebanon. The diaspora, Lebanese, there's a lot of wealth. It's not only about the money. I mean, you can have a way, but you have to be able and willing, right? You can't just be able or capable.
Yeah.
We have the capability, but we have to have the willingness.
Yeah, the ability as well to do it.
And I've mentioned some examples like multi-land, but it's not only that. We need today the youth, the private sector, abroad and here, they have to come in and help them and start small. Start with things that you're familiar with.
Step by step.
Start local. Even if you want to come to your village and do a renewable energy project in your village, a solar refrigeration in your village, where you come. Start with those, but just do it. But again, I say, holistically, we need the legislation, right? But start, this is where we need to start. Look at examples, create examples like we did, and scale them. Yeah. Even if you start small, do a $10 million investment, scale it to 20 after a year, to 30 after 2, to 40 after 3, and that resonates. You'd be surprised. I want to say something. There's a lot of private wealth out there in the world that would seek investments in places like Lebanon, if they've got the right platform to invest in.
Yeah.
Right? They do. People do this. And I'm talking in the trillions of dollars. But you've got to be able to convince them we need at least a relatively stable geopolitical climate. relatively, I'm not saying we understand what Lebanon's like. We've lived with it all our lives. We know this. And I think that's an imperative. And I go back and say one thing, look, we're not Egypt. We're not 120 million people, with respect, you know.
We're a small country.
We're a small country. We can do a lot with a little.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to do a lot with a lot.
The impact will be faster.
Of course.
Because we're a smaller country.
That's right. As Mother Teresa said, you need to do little things with a lot of love.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Anthony. It was very fruitful, and I really hope that the people watching this episode truly understand what you do, what does Cedar Oxygen do, and all the numbers that you gave us, like, it truly resonates with us as Lebanese. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure. Thanks. And anybody that needs anything, let them reach out to us and the team.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.